This is a video for lesson 1.3 on the order of operations. Now this may be a review, but I always have trouble remembering the order. So one of the first things you should do is put this within your math rules notebook for the order of operations, and it would be good to have a few examples next to it. So the first thing with order of operations, which is going to tell you the order to solve a complex problem. For example, on the right you can see 3, we're going to solve in a minute. So there's multiple operations, and this is telling you what order do you solve each of those operations. So the first thing you're going to do is always evaluate the expression that are inside the grouping symbols first. So here in B, we see that there's grouping symbols, meaning these parentheses, or when you have a fraction, the grouping symbols, we assume there's a parentheses on the top and bottom. We always do the top and the bottom first and separately. The second is to evaluate powers. So we learned about exponents. So if there's any exponents, that's what comes next. Then we're going to multiply and divide from left to right. So begin with the left and then move to the right. And then lastly, add and subtract from left to right. So let's do a few problems together. If you want to, go ahead and press pause now and try the 3 problems on the right, and then see if you get the same answer when we do it together. So here we have 12 times 3 minus 18 divided by 6. The first thing we're going to do, we check, do we have any grouping symbols? No. Do we have any powers? No. So that's done. So the first step is to multiply and divide from left to right. So the first thing we have is 12 times 3, which is equal to 36, minus, but we don't do the subtraction yet because look, we have a division. So you have to do 18 divided by 6 next, which is 3. And then we can do 36 minus 3 to get 33 as the answer. So with the next problem, now we have our grouping symbols. So let's erase these. We have grouping symbols for this problem. We have these parentheses. So we need to do what's in the parentheses first. So 10.6 plus 7.3 is going to be 17.9. Then, anytime you have this number next to the parentheses, it's the same thing as multiplication. So now we have 9 times 17.9, which is equal to 161.1. And then for the last problem, here we have fraction bar. And this fraction bar here is an example of a grouping symbol, because this is telling us we need to do whatever's on the top separate from whatever's on the bottom, and then divide last. So this is the case where you're going to do the subtraction and addition before dividing, but that's only because this is part of the grouping symbol. So let's do what's here first. You can assume it's like this. So 55.4 minus 18.5 is going to be 36.9 divided by 2.6 plus 0.4, which is 3. So then 36.9 divided by 3 is going to equal 12.3. So that's a few example problems of how to use order of operations, and I'll give you a few more to practice on your own after I give you the next example. So example 2 is evaluating variable expressions using order of operations. So in this case, we're going to solve the problem for 3 times x minus y squared. So we have this exponent like we learned in the previous section. We're going to solve this when x equals 7 and y equals 3. So the first step is always to substitute in for those variables. So now we have 3 times 7 minus 3 squared. So we need to do what's in the parentheses first because our order of operation tells us we need to evaluate those grouping symbols first. So 7 minus 3 is 4, so we get 3 times 4 squared. Our second step is to evaluate the powers. So 4 squared, we have to do this exponent next. So we get 3 times 16, and then we can finalize it by multiplying to get 48 as our answer. So I'd like you to go ahead and try the following 4 problems for homework. So the 2 are without the variables, 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4 use the variables, so you're going to use when x equals 5 and y equals 7. Press pause now and solve these before moving on. So the third example is using a problem-solving plan. This is going to help you solve a problem more easily and take defined steps to do it. So the problem is that we're going to use for this example is to start your scrapbook hobby. You bought a scrapbook for $19.99, 2 pairs of scissors for $5.50 each, and 3 cropping tools which cost $8.25 each. And you need to figure out how much did you spend total. So the first step of the solution is read and understand your problem. So what are they telling you? What are you trying to solve? So they're basically telling us you're going to buy several tools and 1 scrapbook, and you're asked to find the final total cost. That's what you need to know. So then make a plan. In this case, I think it's a really great idea to use a verbal model. This will help you lay out exactly what you're solving for. So here's an example of the verbal model. So the total cost is equal to the cost of the scrapbook plus the number of scissors times the cost of the scissors, then plus the number of cropping tools times the cost of each cropping tool. So we can then solve the problem by using this verbal model to write and evaluate an expression. So we have the total cost is equal to $19.99, which is the cost of our scrapbook. Oops, I'm going to write this multiply. Then we have the number of scissors, which is 2, times the cost of the scissors, which is here, plus the number of cropping tools times the cost of the cropping tools. So then we can use our order of operations to solve this. So we do multiplication first and then add them together. So we get our $11 here and our $24.75 from the cropping tools, and we can add them all together to get our total cost and thus the answer. So try to use this model and these steps to solve a problem on your own tonight. And the problem is you buy 3 shirts for $12.99 each and 2 pairs of pants for $24.99 each for some back-to-school clothes. So find the total cost that you spent shopping for those new clothes. That's the end of lesson 1.3.